Jarryd Hayne was, at one stage at least, for a very long period of time, arguably the one or two top rugby league player in the world. I mean, he's that good. He is legit. He's that once in a generation athlete that comes along that has all the attributes. He's big, he's strong, he's fast, he's elusive. I mean, he's a massive man. He has fantastic footwork, and he truly does have NFL quality speed when he gets moving. And you've got to remember, mate, that the code of rugby that he plays, so Rugby League, the 13-man code, is essentially American football sped up. It's basically, it's hurry-up offense where you take your sets of plays and you put them you take your plays and put them in a set of 6 downs, and you say, look, mate, you've got 6 downs to score. So he is familiar with kind of the style of the repetitive play set. It's just that, all right, now he gets 35 seconds between each play. He is a legit chance. And yes, I know the playbook for him will be extremely hard to get through. An NFL playbook, especially in the position that he's trying to make, it is a lot for him to learn. It is not, no offense to the lineman, he's not standing there he really does have to think. But his natural attributes in what he does when he gets hold of the football really could make him. I would think the ultimate position for him would be punt returner. I think that's where he'll probably get on the paddock first. Maybe at a running back. I don't know. The concept of getting away from the open field and learning how to run behind a blocker is extremely hard to break. I know that from personal experience. When I first come to Jacksonville, there was a semi-pro team here, and I thought, I'm going to go and have a crack at this American football. And as much as we practiced, when it come to game time, when they put me out for the first, I think, 7 minutes as a running back, I instantly run out from behind the blockers because it was instinctual to not run behind a blocker. You just sort of want to find your own crease. If he can get over that habit, I think it'll be okay. But as an open field punt returner, the guy is look, mate, everyone's done it, right? Get on Google and Google Jarryd Hayne's NRL highlights. The guy is, he's a freak athlete and he's very freaky at what he does. I really do rate him as, if there's anyone that comes from the sport of rugby league and the National Rugby League in Australia that has a crack at making it, I think he's the guy. I really do.
You make a good point. You want a guy like that in a position like that is more instinctual. And I've never really thought about the transition from more of kind of a free-flowing attitude towards carrying the football to everything in the NFL is so structured. Every play, you hear coaches talk about it all the time, Spinner. We were 10 guys were in position. Why'd you give up the 80-yard touchdown? Well, that one guy hit the wrong gap. It's just, and it's so much about you being in the place you're expected to be and nobody performing, outside that. Now, you do have guys that play above the X's and O's, as they like to say, but even those guys are encouraged to stay within the structure as long as possible until you get to that point where you can let your natural ability take over. So that's something I wouldn't have thought of, just that willingness and instinct or, just the ability to run behind those blockers like that.
Yeah, mate, it is instinctual. Obviously, in all rugby codes, you can't run behind someone. There's no blocking. You can't block a defender for a ball carrier. So the instinctual side of that to now completely change everything and actually do something in our game that is that's illegal. You can't run behind a guy that, it's called obstruction. Look, mate, you can't get behind a guy like that. But in the open field play where he's catch the ball and get as many yards upfield, whether it's a sidestep, whether it's your speed, whether it's your power, whatever it is, just go forward as many yards as you possibly can. I think that he has the natural attributes to be very good at that.
Axemen. Big one this weekend, right?
Yeah, mate. Look, the Axemen are at home. Very uncharacteristic of the team to get off to a slow start this year. Obviously, they did lose a number of player personnel, not only guys that had retired, a couple of the import players went back to Australia, and a number of players, due to the expansion, had moved down to Central Florida, and the Central Florida Warriors benefited from that.
Those sons of...
Yeah, those people from DeLand. No one likes them.
No one likes anyone from DeLand. Trust me, I know.
Yes. So, yeah, mate, they're home. A must-win. If there's any chance of getting a home playoff game, the Central Florida Warriors come up here, so it is essentially guys that have played together. It's essentially teammate on teammate at this point. I think the Warriors have 9 former Axemen players on their roster.
Wow.
Yeah, there's certainly plenty of bad blood there. Once the kickoff whistle starts, But they want a home playoff. They've got to win this weekend. And that's the whole focus. And it goes back to that home game regular season record that the Axemen are so proud of. It was the last time during regular season that a team come to UNF and beat the Jacksonville Axemen was 2008. That's a pretty impressive home field, home game regular season record to be a part of. So
that's pretty outstanding, which highlights the
7 years
desire to get that whole playoff game, obviously.
Yeah, mate, it's everything together. And again, it comes down to how the leaders on a team handle pressure. You can look at this as there's a lot of pressure on the guys that are leading the younger players, leading the rookies, making the calls on the field where they get a bit panicked by everything. Or you can embrace that as your motivation.
All right, we get Spinner Howland here with us, who's the Mr. Everything, chief cook and bottle washer with the Jacksonville
That's exactly
Axemen.
what I am at the moment.
That's what I kind of like to refer to you as. Stick around a little bit.
Mate.
Right? All right, we'll talk a little football, we'll talk a little rugby. If you'd like to get on board, 641-1010 is the way to do it. Question of the day, which of the 3 primary franchise tag players, Justin Houston, Demaryius Thomas, Des Bryant, would make the biggest positive impact? If you could magically place one on the Jaguar roster, which one of those 3 would you prefer to have? We've got This State in Football History coming up, the Honda Drive Around the NFL, and more with Spinner Howland. Mike Dempsey here, live at Everbank. It's a Metro Rooter Wednesday. Jaguars Today continues on 1010XL, 92.5 FM. Robert's First Coast Roofing, couple of birthdays on this date in football history, starting back in 1935. Alex Karras, born on this date, he passed away in 2012 at the age of 77. Known to one generation as an NFL player, primarily with the Detroit Lions, a 4-time Pro Bowler, 3-time first-team All-Pro as a defensive tackle. Also as an actor, Blazing Saddles, Webster. I'm going to get in a lot of trouble with people out there. I tell you that Blazing Saddles is one of the most overrated movies in the history of cinema. All right, I say the word cinema because it seems more lofty that way, Spinner. But I'm not a big Blazing Saddles guy. In fact, I'm debating whether or not to do a Friday Top 5 on your 5 most overrated movies of all time. Anything leap to mind? I just got hit with something by Fortunato, I think, for not respecting Blazing Saddles enough.
Mate, it's a classic, and I don't care where you're from, what part of the at least the English-speaking world. I don't know if they dubbed that one for international audiences with foreign languages, but, mate, it's Blazing Saddles. Come on!
I hear you. What can I tell you? It's on my list, by the way, of overrated movies, practically all comedies. You know, number 1 might be The Jerk by Steve Martin.
It's pretty funny.
One of the dumbest movies ever made.
Funny.
One of the dumbest movies ever made. Moving on. Born on this date, 1967, July 15th. Former Jaguar Pro Bowler, only here for 1 year. Carnell Lake came in as a safety, primarily from the Pittsburgh Steelers. 5-time Pro Bowler and 1-time first-team All-Pro appearance. Made the Pro Bowl in '99. I walk by his picture on the Jaguars Pro Bowl Wall of Fame every day when I leave the studio. So not a whole lot else going on as we march towards the opening of training camp, but that is what's going on from this date in football history. Brought to you by Bob Roberts First Coast Roofing. Whether you need roofing for your house, for your business, repairs, re-roofs, you can call today and get a free estimate at 287-7756, license number CCC 056797 for First Coast Roofing. That is this date in football history.
Now drive around the NFL.
Well, guys, an update on the Aaron Kromer story. The Buffalo Bills offensive line coach has been placed on an indefinite paid administrative leave after his arrest this past weekend. ESPN has been told by the Walton County Sheriff's Office that they are also pursuing a misdemeanor battery charge against his son Zachary, who was also at the scene. No court date set for the Bills coach. Jason Pierre-Paul is out of the South Florida hospital. JPP still yet to sign his nearly $15 million franchise player tender. ESPN's Ed Werder reported yesterday that Pierre-Paul is unlikely to sign anything until he is healthy. The deadline for franchise players to sign a multi-year deal is 4 p.m. today, and after that, JPP could only sign a one-year deal. Des Bryant, Demaryius Thomas, and Justin Houston, also a few guys looking to get their deals wrapped up by today's 4 p.m. deadline. And finally, the commissioner said last week that he expected to have a ruling, or the sources near the commissioner says they expect to release the ruling by the end of the week on Tom Brady. The NFL Players Association is expected to contest the results of Brady's appeal in federal court if any of the 4-game suspension remains. Union sources told ABC News' Ryan Smith, if the NFLPA does challenge the appeal verdict in court, it will argue the ball deflation policy was incorrectly applied to Brady and also against the general awareness standard that Ted Wells talked about in his Wells report to determine Brady's advantage. That's all I have for the drive in the NFL.
You know, is there any doubt that they misapplied the standard? Because every time he gets challenged, Roger Goodell is over. He's gotten them all overturned. Everyone that's been challenged on the basis of he's gone too far in his authority. You thought I was looking for something to write on.
Yeah, I did. You were sitting there with a pen, waving it around like a wand.
See, I'm holding that one finger up. I'm pantomiming the fact that Jason Pierre-Paul is not going to sign his franchise tenders because he has to relearn how to use his hand. He can't sign the paper right now. Okay, I'm just thinking it's probably difficult to redo.
Mate, on that note, I know I brought it up right before we went on air, that we've come up with a great idea for the Axemen. We know our fans want a bit more, so we've decided that every time an Axemen player scores, we're going to have fireworks. But we're going to have the player that scores actually set the fireworks off. So that'll bring a new impact to the...
Right, do you really want to get that across the touchline? I don't know.
Hey, listen, you have to take a bottle rocket and you have to hold it in your hand and let it fire off in the air. What a spectacular...
Yeah, it seems like a great idea. What could possibly go wrong?
Nothing. It's only fireworks. It's not like it's a mini explosive device.
Are we going straight to Hades for Rock and Jason Pierre-Paul less than 2 weeks out? I don't know. I kind of think no.
You know, it's funny, we were talking about this the other day. Were there a few beers involved? And I don't know the full story of exactly what happened.
You know, he had a van load of fireworks.
I know,
did
but...
you see the picture of the van load?
Yes, but was it a case, was he there with a couple of mates, and his mate, I mean, I may or may not have been guilty of trying to pull the same prank if I was in that situation, of lighting one up and really quickly going, here, mate, hold this. Me just for a giggle.
Do you have friends like that? I mean, is this a rugby condition?
Yeah, not anymore, but got a lot of one-arm balls.
Hey, hold this, and they'll actually take that from you.
With enough beers, you just put your hand in and hang on to it.
Yeah, all right, there you go. I could actually see that. At least that's kind of the legend of the tough man rugby guy that you guys
we'll keep going on with that.
Don't close your hand around it. We know that.
Oh, right? We like to let him off in our teeth, mate. Come on.
You probably do. That's probably why you don't have many of your own. This stat in for Pro Football Focus. Sam Monson tweeting this out. Quarterbacks and their quarterback rating when they're not facing pressure versus when they are facing pressure, and ranking them by the difference between the two. Only 2 quarterbacks in the entire National Football League had a positive differential, meaning that they actually performed better according to quarterback rating, which can be a flawed statistic certainly, but based on that measure, that were actually better under pressure than when they were in an unmolested pocket. Ben Roethlisberger, it's shocking how much better he is actually to me when you consider he had a quarterback rating without pressure of 98.4. That's pretty good for any quarterback to have for the entirety of his season. But under pressure, he goes up to 112.2. It's absolutely ridiculous, Spinner. There's only 1 or 2 guys, even in the 90s. He is so much better under pressure because, as we talked about for years, he almost invites it in because he'll have 2 or 3 guys hanging on him. That's 2 or 3 fewer defenders that are in coverage out there, and he is strong enough to shake these guys off, big enough to see over the defense and still deliver the ball down the field. So, in a way, the more guys you send and get a hand on Ben Roethlisberger, the better it's been for him.
Mate, I absolutely agree, and I don't think anybody would disagree that Ben Roethlisberger is one of the tough guys in the league. He doesn't mind getting hit, he doesn't mind being belted around at the quarterback position, and he is a big man. For a quarterback, he is a very big guy. So he's so focused, and I know I said to you earlier, I equate that to a boxer that is so focused on his own punches, his own punch combination, that he's prepared to weather a couple of jabs going into a combination to deliver the combination he wants. All right, you tag me 2 or 3 times as I'm walking into you, but I'm going to get that shot off that I want. And I think Roethlisberger plays the game like that. He thrives on the contact. He thrives on the fact that he is kind of that model tough guy that's left in the league, the quarterback that's willing to stand there. And you're absolutely right. If you can, quote, milk a couple of guys out of their position to get at you, you open up more offensive players that you can deliver the ball to. It's simple numbers. I'm going to have 3 guys on me, which means that there's 2 vacant spots somewhere on the field for me to throw the football to. And if I'm big enough and tough enough to do that, then why wouldn't I do that?
And he's proven to be that throughout the entirety of his career. We look at Jay Cutler and we think this guy is not good in any circumstance, that he's an interception machine. Actually, his quarterback rating was pretty decent regardless, with no pressure, 87.5, which is not astronomical. There are a lot of quarterbacks in the NFL that when they have a pressure-free pocket, their quarterback rating soars over 100. But he actually improved as well under pressure and went up into the low 90s. He's the only other quarterback other than Roethlisberger to actually improve with guys in his face. Blake Bortles, where is he? People want to know.
They don't.
Well, they don't. You're right. This ranks 39 quarterbacks that qualified for enough starts in the National Football League. Blake, his quarterback rating with no pressure last year was 84.9. So that doesn't sound that bad. It's not horrible. But when you look at this list, I think that's the lowest, with the exception of Zach Mettenberger, who was at 84.5. So just a couple of rookies. He trailed everybody else in that category, but still not horrible. A reasonable number. And as a rookie, you can understand that that's probably going to rise in the future. Now, the problem is, when pressured last year, Blake's quarterback rating dropped to 22.9. I mean, so far below any other QB on this list, and a drop of 62 points in his ranking, which is second only to Charlie Whitehurst. Whitehurst fell further because his QB record without, or quarterback rating without pressure, was well into the 100s. And he didn't fall as far as Blake. But regardless, throw Whitehurst out of the picture. Blake Bortles way down there, which is kind of concerning when you consider the state of the offensive line, at least last year, and how many sacks that he took and how much pressure he was under. Maybe a little less concerning when you look one spot further up on the list and realize the next biggest drop in QB rating came from Tom Brady.
Yeah, mate, but I don't see that as an unusual statistic at all, and I think that it's the way that the league is going. We all know it's a quarterback-driven league, and we know that the type of quarterback or the type of stats, the type of play that scouts, that general managers, that coaches are looking for in what their quarterbacks are able to do. When was the last time you actually said, we have a running quarterback? Let's go get a quarterback that can actually get out and do something on his own on a consistent basis and build a game plan around that. There is so much focus now put on the offensive line. You want guys to be able to protect you. How many times do you hear it? Protect the quarterback, create the pocket, and make the pocket withstand pressure for as many seconds as possible. That is the two biggest things that I, as an outsider, look, I'm by no means an expert in the NFL or coaching, other than I see that. I want a quarterback that, if needed, can stand in the pocket and is not afraid of that shadow pressure, but I want an offensive line that can make the pocket withstand pressure for as long as possible to give my guy the chance he needs to get the ball downfield where we need. It is a passing league. It is a quarterback league. So let's focus on the type of quarterback we want and the type of offensive line we want to protect him. You're not going out getting the Ben Roethlisbergers anymore. If a guy has that attribute, fantastic. You'll get away with it. I go back, and I'm by no means do I think that he was a Roethlisberger probably level guy, but Byron Leftwich, mate, he was belted around his entire career, but he was kind of at least that tough guy. He knew, look, I'm going to get hit, but I'm still going to try and get rid of the ball. It's just kind of a part of the job. I don't think they look for that as a true attribute in quarterbacks anymore. I just don't think that that's a part of a high level of what their expectation of a quarterback is.
I think what they want a guy who, look, they don't want the quarterback to get hit, period, but they want a guy who's not going to flinch with the pressure. Leftwich sometimes took it to an extreme because he held it so long. And he had such a wind-up delivery that pressure that got close ended up getting to him as he released the football. He probably took more big hits over his college career and his NFL career based on the similar amount of snaps as a lot of guys do. One thing you couldn't knock about Byron was his toughness, but you don't want that toughness on display week after week after week if you're a quarterback in the NFL. I think with Blake, you expect him to get better just because he's going to get better. He's going to get more comfortable. His mechanics are going to get tightened up. He's going to have better people around him at the skill positions. But I think the biggest way to improve that number is to not let him face pressure as much as we talked about. They brought in three guys, one of which will definitely start at right tackle, and Jeremy Parnell. A lot of people think Wisniewski will win that center spot. And A.J. Cann, I don't think that they set out to target him, but he kind of fell into their lap. So better competition on the offensive line hopefully results in better play on the offensive line this year, and Blake Bortles not facing nearly as much pressure as he did last year when he got sacked 55 times in 13 starts. Spinner Howland with the Jacksonville Axemen in studio with me. Mike Dempsey here with you. Tyler Devitt along as well. It's a Metro Rooter Wednesday, and we will continue live at Everbank in a moment. Jaguars Today on 1010XL 92.5 FM. All right, we continue along on this Wednesday, brought to you by Metro Rooter. Jaguars Today on 1010XL 92.5 FM. Metro Rooter on hand for any size plumbing job you need. Anywhere in Northeast Florida, they're going to take care of you. I've had them in my house. I don't trust everybody. I trust this business. I tell you what, you don't want to have plumbing issues, but it's part of life sometimes, especially as a homeowner. You got to deal with it. Metro Rooter is on the job for you. 695-1911. Serving Jacksonville since 1978 with the right people, the right equipment, same-day service, weekends included, everything from in-home, your business, industrial plumbing, septic systems, restaurant grease trap service. If it has to do with plumbing, Metro Rooter is the solution for you. Visit them at metrorooter.com or call 695-1911 for our Wednesday sponsor, Metro Rooter, here on Jaguars Today. Mike Dempsey with Spinner Howland in studio down here at Everbank. Tyler Devitt spinning the hits today as well. Nick Saban and the Alabama Crimson Tide on hand today. Today is the Tides Day at SEC Media Days, which is ongoing. Frank Franchi and David Lamb, among others, from 1010XL, that outstanding coverage over the last couple days. That will continue today. But speaking at the podium today, Nick Saban said he would like to see the NFL Advisory Board give out draft grades later in the process than they do right now. Because last year the grades came out on December 15th, and according to Saban, he said he had underclassmen on his team that basically went into protect my financial future mode and not concern themselves so much about winning football games. That's the inference. He said they played not to get hurt, ran out of bounds in the team's loss to the Buckeyes rather than take a big hit. That's directly challenging the manhood of some of these guys, isn't it? I mean,
without a doubt.
You know, you're saying, hey, this guy's basically afraid. He's afraid of the injury factor here. He's not playing tough anymore. He's not playing the football that got him to this point.
Are you here for the team or here for yourself, son?
Right. Well,
what are you here for? And in an open conversation, he'll tell you he's here for the team. But when you put him in a situation like that, when the pressure's on, in the back of his mind, he's thinking the cash register's bell is going off here. I'm going to run out of bounds.
I really wonder how much, though, that date. If you're a guy, if you're Amari Cooper, you know what your draft stock is.
You know if you're going.
Right.
Yes.
You're today's day and age, kids are so plugged in. My kid, I can't get anything past the kid, okay? We're both into all the superhero movies, right? So I don't want to break it to him. I'd already seen the Batman versus Superman trailer, right? So I'd seen it. So he dials it up on the iPad. He goes, Daddy, check this out. Batman versus Superman. So we watch a trailer together. I don't spoil the surprise, but I try to point out a couple of things because I've read some stories on some things. I said, you know, such and such. He goes, I know. He knows it all. He's on there constantly studying. It's all at these kids' fingertips these days, Spinner, and that's a good thing, I think, overall. But Amari Cooper's no dummy. He knows what it's been said about him. He's a Biletnikoff Award winner. He knows he's a top 10 pick, if not higher. And so I don't know if he gets a grade from the NFL that says, hey, you're definitely a top, half of the first round kind of guy. He already knew that going in. Maybe for some of the fringe guys whose stock was higher than they expected, maybe they go into that mode. But I'd like to know who he's talking about. Is he talking about TJ Yeldon, who the Jaguars drafted in the second round?
Mate, it's not the coach and it's not the player. I look at the outside influence. And you know that you're going to, look, you and I have talked about this. You either have it inside you or don't. You're either a tough guy or you're not. You're going to be the guy that says, no matter what happens, I'm going to play this game the best of my ability at all times and try and win, no matter what the personal injury potential is to myself. Even if you're that kind of guy, but you're playing at that level high school, that level college football, and you know you're going to the NFL, you know you have a number of people that you will also talk to, whether it's friends, whether it's family members, whether it's the new agent you might have just had a talk to, whether it's someone that's had a chat to you about potential deals, about sponsorships when you get in the NFL, and they're in your ear already. They're already there. They're telling you, listen, did you see the draft rankings that come out? Do you see where you are? I know your coach is going to tell you, and I know you're a tough guy, but you've you've got to at least pay a bit of attention. Think about your future. Think about the money. It only takes one little injury. So we're not telling you to not play your best, but, just maybe have that in the back of your mind and slowly, and if you hear that from 1, 2, 3 people that are influential outside of your coach and outside of your teammates, it starts to wear on your mind. And you start playing a game where, could I go from a lot of millions to, well, if I get a little injury, is it not going to be a lot of millions?
And Spinner, what do you tell every Axemen player over the years, and what has every coach ever told you? You're more likely to get hurt when you start
when you don't play at 100%, you're going to get hurt.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely, without a doubt.
That's kind of the situation I think that he's looking at here. And keeping in mind, the NFL Advisory Board is a lot more of a substantive kind of thing for these guys to hear. I'm not suggesting that every player's in Amari Cooper's situation. He may be an extreme example because your buddies are all telling you, oh, you can go to the league, right? And maybe your family's telling you you can go to the league and all that. And maybe Mel Kiper's telling you can go to the league and you're going to be this. But the guys who really know, the advisory board is more plugged in than all these guys. They have the ear and they listen as well to the decision makers around the National Football League. So they're going to give you a better reflection of kind of the range you're probably likely to come off the board. But still, there's a lot of info out there.
A coach's biggest support group, while they're telling the player the same thing the coach is telling him, is his peers and his support system. His biggest nightmare is that same group of people now telling them something other than what he's telling them. It's a good and it's a bad. And as a high-level college football coach in the US, where you've got guys that are going into the league, the minute they release a statistic like that, all of a sudden all right, now I've got to reel these guys in. Now I've got to keep them focused. Now I've got a guy that knows he's going. He knows where he's going to be drafted, or at least he thinks he knows. He's going to have all these support people, this peer group around him, tell him how fantastic he is, and to focus on something else. That's a nightmare as a coach. It really is.
From the NFL's perspective, college football is a wonderful free.
That's free minor league. That's what it is.
It's a free developmental system for them. So they're very loath to really push back on much of anything, and create any negative impression, because what's the benefit to them, right? They benefit so much from the system set up the way it is. I found it interesting, though, yesterday that a couple of guys, former head coach Jim Fossil of the Giants, saying during an interview on SiriusXM NFL Radio, quote, "Don't be surprised if there was a very good spring league opening next year in the NFL." He's saying basically a minor league system. Now, I'm not suggesting this would be an alternative to college, because the NFL doesn't allow you into the league until you're 3 years removed from your high school graduating class. I would assume any developmental league would have the same rules, because, again, they're not trying to kill the golden goose over here, which is college football. But they're looking for a system where we've got these guys coming in, and they're not ready for the NFL. There's only so many reps in the offseason, and once you get to the season, guys who aren't a factor in that week's game plan are getting limited repetition. It's very difficult for those guys to improve their game to the point where, especially quarterbacks,
XFL 2.0,
right? Well,
coming to you next spring.
But the way he is suggesting it, he says opening next year in the NFL. If the XFL was its own independent thing, that's some wild ideas, such as Tom McManus. Shout out to your former co-host out there, Tommy Mac. I love Tommy, man. He's listening right now. I bet you. He'll probably text me in about 2 seconds. But this sounds more like maybe a 6-team minor league developmental system, much like NFL Europe, but probably in the States. So anyway, Fossil brings that up. And then later in the same day, Bill Polian, also going on SiriusXM NFL Radio, says that the quality of our game has suffered because there is not a developmental league. He was not asked specifically about this, and he wasn't making a prediction that there'll be a league, but I found the timing very curious, that these two figures would bring this up on the same afternoon. He said, particularly for young quarterbacks, particularly for young offensive linemen, particularly for young defensive linemen, especially 3-4 defensive linemen, there's a crying need for a developmental league. And he also said, the rise of spread offenses in college has made that even tougher because you have fewer quarterbacks playing in the type of football system that they're going to want them to play in the National Football League. So here you've got two pretty big name guys that are pretty plugged in. One of them saying, hey, don't be surprised if we see this next spring. And then Polian going on to basically tout the need for exactly what we're talking about here. So you wonder, will we see some kind of development league? Think about it right now, Spinner. most of the National Football League's been shut down for a few weeks, right? Everyone's got some time off. Who knows? Spring league that goes into the summer, the NFL's always looking to fill every little crevice on the sporting calendar year-round.
Without a doubt.
It's the only time of the year that they're a little bit depressed in terms of grabbing the headlines. But even today, franchise tag deadline day, right? So you could have some big news coming up this afternoon that we'll be talking about. Training camp will be here in a couple weeks, and once you get to the beginning of August, they're off and running once again. So can they get a true tangible benefit from developing some of these players that aren't quite ready for the league yet, but at the same time, can they fill in some of those gaps in the year-long cycle of covering the NFL? Well, they'd like nothing better.
I'll preface this by saying the Rugby League side of me and the USA Rugby League and the Jacksonville Axemen side of me doesn't like the idea, because we deliberately play in the summer so we don't compete with the NFL, because the only opportunity we ever have, for me sitting here with you right now, is because there's very little to talk about in the NFL, especially in a city like Jacksonville that has no other major sporting franchises. So for us, it's at least a chance to get a little bit of media somewhere, somehow. However, from a coach and a administrator of a league, absolutely, the NFL really could use this developmental league. I absolutely agree with that. It's a great way to evaluate players. Look, guys on the practice squad, are you really developing them in any way, shape or form other than just have them run through the motions? They're not. I understand the process, I understand the system, but if you truly want to find out, have you got a player that really could be of value to any of the teams in the NFL, put them out there and let them play games.
You ultimately have to see them in a game situation.
You've got to see
right?
it.
Otherwise, guys like that are long shots because the investment is not there from the team to get those guys to put them in a position. The stability, the job security of coaching staffs is not such that you can just take a wild chance and play this guy. Guy like Kurt Warner, this example has been cited many times. Jake Delhomme as well, played in NFL Europe, basically proved their worth, and even then it still took a little bit of time for them to get a crack, but at least you had some game film on these guys in a professional setting with coaches running NFL-style offenses. So something to keep an eye on, certainly.
You bring up a perfect point there, watching the game film. So this past Sunday, we had the 23 top players from all four teams in the Southern Division of our league come to a combine and a camp for consideration to go into the player pool for the national team. In our sport, the elite level you could ever want to play at, you get to go and play for your nation in international competition. The difference in these players with drills, with skills, is so minute. From the top guy to the bottom guy, those 23, is almost nothing. So what do you do? What do you do as a coach? You go, as selected, you go back to the film and you watch how the guy reacts in situations during the game. Is he tough? Does he do the stuff that he does in practice in pressure situations? You have to put them in real game-like situations if you truly want to know anything about a guy.
Coming up, we'll take a look at the fan feedback spotlight. We'll also get all the latest, and there's so much going on with the Axemen. There's always something that you've got your fingers in, so many different pies out there that you're cooking up for the Jacksonville Axemen and the rugby scene on the North Florida area here. So we'll get into that coming up, Spinner. But the question of the day today, asking people on Twitter, at MD_1010XL, to reply, which of the three primary guys that we've been looking at with the franchise tag applied, if you could pick one in fantasy land and add him to the Jaguar roster, would make the biggest impact? Des Bryant, Demaryius Thomas, so two high-end receivers, and you could pick your poison there, or Justin Houston, the NFL sack leader from last year. And a lot of people weighing in on all those guys and making some pretty strong cases. So we'll get to that coming up. By the way, Ian Rappaport saying today that the Cowboys have increased their offer to Des Bryant. We were talking, I think, off the air, that he is, if you just played under the franchise tag for the next couple of years, he'd make about $28 million.
Right.
Okay? So they initially offered him a long-term contract earlier in the offseason, 6 years, $10 million per, 6 years, $60 million. He's going to look at that. He's going to say, wait, I can make an average of $14 million over the next 2 years if I do nothing, right? And most of that's locked in. If I don't get hurt, that's practically a guarantee I'll get that money. So why would I take a deal that averages $10 million? Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Rappaport says the Cowboys have increased their offer to Dez to an annual average beyond $13 million, and reports that Bryant is more optimistic than ever that a deal will get done. So, hey, look, in the end, money talks, right? Whether him threatening to miss regular season games is having an impact on this negotiation or not. Michael Irvin suggested they'd go from 12-4 to 8-8 without Des Bryant. I don't know if he's necessarily wrong when you consider they've lost the heart of the running game in DeMarco Murray. Yes, they have that offensive line. It's going to be a lot easier to stack 8 men in the box against Joseph Randall if Des Bryant's not on the football field.
I absolutely agree. They
we'll,
need him.
We'll keep an eye on that one and see if anything gets done by the 4 o'clock deadline to extend a long-term contract offer, to get a long-term contract deal done with these guys. And, of course, Jason Pierre-Paul, we know the long-term offer is off the table. And Stephen Gostkowski, the underappreciated franchise kicker for the New England Patriots, we'll pass on breaking him down. Coming up next, we'll take a look at the fan feedback spotlight. More with Spinner Howlin here, live in studio at Everbank Field. I'm Mike Dempsey. Jaguars Today on a Metro Rooter Wednesday continues in a moment on 1010XL, 92.5 FM. Hey, you, Spinner Howlin, joining me in studio. Thanks to Charles Davis of the NFL Network for jumping on board a little bit earlier today. Just got that idea in my head now. Now I want to give a call to Tommy Mack, see if he wants to stop by tomorrow. I don't know what he's up to today.
He's doing well. Spoke to him the other day, mate.
I know he is. He's doing very well. He was a hit. He came in and sat in with me, I want to say in the spring. It was sometime after football season wrapped up, and it was a big hit. Thought we were going to rebrand the Rumble there for a brief minute.
Mate, bring it back. Mate, the two of you are the reason. Okay, you know that. It was at that old studio over at JTB.
Enterprise Park.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mate, that was it. That's where it all started.
The launching pad for the Axemen and all the glory that would come. How many championships? How many league championships for the Axemen?
2 national championships, both of them undefeated seasons.
2 national championships.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
It's not bad.
It's not shabby.
And been in the national championship 5 of the last 6 seasons.
Now,
not too bad.
You've given me a slew of Axemen-related notes here. I'd just like to highlight a couple of these coming up. We mentioned the game this weekend, a big one versus the Orlando Warriors coming up.
Yep.
So, kind of a must-win situation practically, right? I mean,
it is a must-win.
Certainly to get that home playoff game. The Southern Conference Championship game locked in for Jacksonville, right?
Yes, locked in. August 15th.
That's coming up on August 15th. A bid is in to host the national championship game.
The league was very impressed here last year with the event we put on, and they invited us to bid again.
Do you feel like, I mean, you have a very strong chance here?
It'll be us or one other team. It's down to 2 teams at this point.
Okay.
So I like our chances.
Happy with your positioning.
Yep,
on that.
nod and a wink on that one.
All right, nod and a wink. Spinner, you don't have to read too much between the lines with Spinner sometimes. Now, one thing that I think is cool, among the things that you've been able to do in growing the profile of rugby here on the First Coast, and really in this country, is the national team and the Axemen's connection with the national team. Are we going to see some guys make a run, or are we going to see some Axemen legacies on the U.S. national team?
There was a list come out today after the training camp, the combine on Sunday. I was emailed a list from the selection panel, a 35-player pool. So you narrow it down to that 35, and from that there'll be 20, 21 guys. And I can confirm, I don't want to give out any names at the moment because I haven't actually let the players know in the South who are on it, but I can tell you that there were 2 Axemen players on that pool.
Nice.
They're in it. And a number of I think there was 9 or 10 across the 4 teams from the South that have been added to the US national team player pool, which for them is... and that can change. A guy falls out of form, someone else he gets bumped out, someone else gets bumped in. A guy gets injured. Obviously, you're facing those things as well. But at the moment, there's 9 or 10 guys from across the South who they have their name in the hat to represent the United States.
All right, for people, a lot of people like me who don't follow the sport worldwide. Certainly, I don't follow international soccer, but when the United States is playing,
of course you do.
I put my colors on. I root for the World Cup team. I watch every game of the Ladies World Cup. I love that stuff. So I'll certainly be doing that with Team USA as well. So tell me why it's a big deal that Bryant McDermott is going to be the coach here.
Mate, Brian McDermott is the head coach of the Leeds Rhinos. So first of all, you've got that connection between the Leeds Rhinos continually coming to Jacksonville for pre-season training camp each year. The Leeds Rhinos play at the elite level. I mean, they play at the top level in the European Super League. Brian's taken them to 2 national championships, which is essentially like winning 2 Super Bowls. It's the same equivalent. And he is going to come and be the head coach of the USA national team, a developing nation in the sport. It would be exactly like taking Tom Coughlin and having him go and coach a team in the CFL. That is the level, and call it a mismatch if you want. But from the US, that's a coup to have a coach of that level, that talent, and the familiarity that he has with seeing the US guys play. The US Pioneers, which is our developmental team, played the Leeds Rhinos when they were here, so he got to see the level the domestic players are at. He got to interact with them. He got to see the athleticism in the US athletes. And he now knows a lot more about them. How do I mould these guys into fantastic rugby league players? So for us, I think Brian McDermott is the absolute number one choice. It couldn't have worked out any better for him to accept, and credit to him volunteering his time to come and do that.
You've got a couple of notes here. One that a bid has been submitted to host World Cup qualifiers in Jacksonville and DeLand.
Yep.
Two favorite places. In December, and you're confident about that. And that the Rugby League World Cup will be in 2017 in Australia and New Zealand. And if the USA beats Jamaica and Canada in December, they'll earn a berth in that. Is this a 4-year cycle? Because I'm just interested because a caller just called in and told Tyler that he is actually headed to the Rugby World Cup, and then he's going to go to the Jaguars-Bills game in London. So is that a different World Cup? Is that, you've got Union, you've got League, or are there different World Cups for that?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, two completely different sports. Rugby Union is the 15-man code of the sport. And look, this is the big problem. When the codes split, they had Rugby Union, which is the official name of the game, and Rugby League. The two worst names you could ever call a sport. You're playing a league or a union. It's insane, I get it. So the 15-man code of rugby has their World Cup later this year.
Gotcha.
The 13-man code Rugby League, the World Cup is in 2017. And yes, they both rotate alternatively on 4-year cycles.
We like to call that the good one. That's the one in 2017.
That's exactly what we like to call it.
That's a good one. That's
so, mate, the USA, you win and you're in. You come here and you win the qualifiers in the Americas region, and you get an automatic berth into that World Cup.
How many more home games this season for the Axemen?
Mate, one more home game, a regular season home game this weekend. It's a must-win, mate. Yeah, we need the fans to come out. And again, look, how good a value is it? $8, kids 13 and under in for free, and Bud Light's still $2.
Pretty darn good value. Give me time, game time.
Kickoff 5:30, gates at 4:30. None better.
Have at it. JacksAxe.com for all the
look at
details
you remember that.
That's pretty. Even I can remember that one, man. JacksAxe.com. You made it simple on me.
For obvious reasons, mate.
Yes.
Take a look at me.
I appreciate that. All right, let's take a look at the fan feedback spotlight today. We ask people, which of these 3 primary franchise tag players who has not yet agreed to a long-term extension will look best in Jaguar teal, gold, and black? Started with Brandon Muchmore. He went with give me Demarius Thomas. That was the first one I got in. And it's a good question when the very next response says, well, either one of the other 2 guys. Clarence Austin said either Dez or Houston. Great additions they would be. Of course, Clarence then predicts 11-5 or 10-6, which he does in every tweet that he sends. He is an eternal optimist. Ocho Fisho said at first glance he'd say Justin Houston, but ultimately Dez is a game changer. He'd go with Dez. John Morgan went with Demarius Thomas, says he's proven. Stevie Howland says Dez probably give me all the touchdowns. Houston because of the injury to Fowler, which I think is interesting here when you consider which side you're on that. If you're saying Houston, I think you're probably very much a proponent of the way they went with drafting Dante Fowler Jr. Because there's still, there were people that were saying that ahead of time, but certainly in hindsight after the injury as well, the chorus of voices saying, boy, what about Amari Cooper? Wouldn't he have looked good in this uniform? It's very similar, that type of situation. Did you want to draft a guy who may be the top of the depth chart wide receiver, or do you want to draft a guy who may be that long-term double-digit sack guy year in, year out? That's a little bit more rare to find. They went that direction. This is kind of the same question here. Look, we'd take any of these guys here. We know that.
Mate, and it's the fan base right now. They're at that time where I think a lot of them, that conservative approach, the long term, give us a couple of years to build on. I think that is now maybe the minority. It is at that point where the fans, we need instant action here. We need results, and we need them now. And I think that is influencing a lot of people that in this particular question, who do you want? Are you going to have that conservative approach, or give me the must-win now people?
I've got the next 4, Christoph, Duval Doom, Cristiano down in Brazil, Allison all weighing in, saying Justin Houston for a variety of reasons, but mostly because he's going to make that pass rush that much more fearsome. So, look, you can go either way on all those guys, and for their team's sakes, they all hope that they get it locked up by 4 o'clock today with a long-term deal. I'm going to say at least one of these guys gets it done, and I'm going to guess Justin Houston is the most likely, even though you're starting to see some reports now indicating that these wide receivers, I thought Charles Davis made a good point earlier, they're all in Denver. You don't know if you got Peyton Manning beyond this season. In Dallas, I don't think look, they want to win now. Everybody wants to win now. I don't think they have the same sense of immediacy that Tony Romo, if he doesn't win it this year, he's coming back next year. You really don't know that with Peyton Manning. And once that happens with Denver, they may be hitting the reset button to some degree. So if you've got him for one more year, and you know you've got him for one more year, don't you want him to have his primary target in there? Certainly they want him to have that. The question is, how much are they willing to pay for it?
Exactly. And Denver is a situation where it is, for a multitude of reasons, it really is a must-win for Peyton Manning, if not anything else.
Christoph, by the way, said he's a rugby union all the way. We'll sway him. We'll fix him.
Yeah, we'll fix him.
All right.
We'll sort him out.
We'll fix him. Steve. Yes, Tyler.
Can Spinner please reiterate where the game is? We had a few callers who were wondering where the game was this week.
University of North Florida at UNF.
Hodges?
No, we're not in Hodges Stadium. We're actually at the field beside that. They've upgraded the practice soccer field for us. There is bleachers, there is full concessions, there is all the rest of it. It's just literally next door to Hodges Stadium.
No, you got to love that, man. It's fun. It's a blast. I mean, if you've never been, it's an absolute blast to go see the Jacksonville Axemen play. Oh, come on. It's been great. And not only just fun to watch as an aesthetic, as a sport, as highly competitive as any team in the league since your inception. So
without a doubt,
you're going to go out there and you're going to see a Jacksonville franchise that has really established himself nationally and has made, I would say, from my vantage point, as big an impact on the sport itself in the United States as any one individual enterprise can claim. I mean, with the guys that you've brought in internationally, the teams that have come in, the coaches, the influence that you've had with all that stuff. It's been a good relationship with the Jaguars, too, hasn't it?
It's the Jaguars, unbelievable relationship. Cannot sing the praises of everyone down in this organisation high enough for the support for us and the recognition that we've got when we do bring championships back to here.
You are flying the flag today. You got your Jags gear on.
Got my Jags gear on frequently. Always, mate. Jag shirts. If it's not an Axemen shirt, I'm often in a Jags shirt.
And it really is fun. The Jags do a great job. They tweet out, the encouragement to, for folks to go attend games, different sports. They do it with the Sharks. They do it with the Suns. They're very much interactive and very aware of everything that's going on in the sporting landscape here in town.
If you haven't done so, get your Jags tickets. Get on it.
There you go.
Get it now.
Has spoken, ladies and gentlemen. Get your Axemen tickets for this Saturday, and then watch them once again march your way to a Rugby League championship. Why not?
Thanks, mate.
Why not? We'll take 3.
Yeah.
3's better than 2, Spinner.
Yes, it is. In most cases.
That's what they tell me. All right, that's just about going to do it for us today. On the way out the door, I want to remind you about our great Friday sponsor, Claude Nolan Cadillac. Since 1905, serving as the preferred Cadillac dealer here in Northeast Florida. If you're thinking, you know what, Cadillac, I've never seen myself as a Cadillac person, go buy Claude Nolan Cadillac. You're going to surprise yourself. They've got the largest selection of new and pre-owned Cadillacs in Jacksonville. You'll find out for sure if Cadillac is for you, and I think it will be if you check out Claude Nolan Cadillac. Go to ClaudeNolan.com or visit them at 4700 Southside Boulevard. And when you stop by, mention Mike Dempsey sent you. They're going to take fantastic care of you. Call them at 642-5111. Claude Nolan Cadillac, one of our great sponsors here on Jaguars Today. Thanks to Metro Rooter, our Wednesday sponsor. The Tom Bush family of dealerships brings you the fan feedback spotlight. Thanks to Charles Davis from the NFL Network, and, of course, the great Spinner Howland, my good friend with the Jacksonville Axemen. Talk to you soon, mate.
Thanks, mate. And what are you talking about? I could absolutely see you in a Cadillac.
You could, me in
without
the Cadillac.
a doubt.
Me in the Cadillac. I'm saying there are a lot of people out there that may say, I've never pictured myself in a Cadillac. Until you go buy Claude Nolan, you really don't know what you're talking about. That's what I'm saying.
You'd look great in a caddy.
I would
yes,
look great in a caddy. I would look great in just about anything. Let's be honest. Come on. Lamborghini, if you want to buy me one. I'll quickly take it for the resale value. And
I'll run out and have a look in the parking lot outside, see what I can come up with.
Dude, you know what? I bet in that little fenced-in area, you got a shot out there in that little fenced-in area that they call the players' lot. All right, that does it for us. For Spinner Howland, for Tyler Devitt, for Joe Fortunato, this is Mike Dempsey signing off Jaguars Today. We'll say hello to XL Primetime coming up next on 1010XL 92.5 FM.